I've been playing Vintage Story since February of this year, and with each video I have made on the game, I have seldom compared it to Minecraft. Whenever I see a video about Vintage Story where the content creator has a title like, I tried the hardest Minecraft clone, or I tried Minecraft's best clone, it always makes me cringe a little bit. I feel that Vintage Story rises above Minecraft in so many regards, and certainly has its own identity separate from Minecraft. At first glance, I could understand how someone could look at both of these games side by side and believe that Vintage Story is yet another Minecraft ripoff. However, if I could make an analogy to best describe how I feel about these two games, I compare it probably between Windows versus Mac OS. Sure, both operating systems are on computers and they even share a lot of features. However, Windows is simply better. I mean, they each have their own style and features that set them apart. Windows is far more customizable than Mac OS, but Mac OS is well known for its uses among business and students. Windows can be used for both of those things, and certainly is, but Windows is seen more as an everyman operating system. And I'm not going to start with Linux. Linux people, you're in your own universe. Love ya, but dear God. Point being, I've really tried to keep my Vintage Story talking points separate from my Minecraft talking points, because I wanted to challenge myself to introduce the game to the Minecraft community in such a way that allows it to stand on its own merits. Now we're about 9 months away from my original review of Vintage Story, and I feel it is time I peel away the borders that separate these talking points and risk starting arguments on the internet, the best place for intelligent discussion. Today, I'm going to explain to you why I think Vintage Story is better than Minecraft. A lot of this is purely subjective, and I am aware that many will disagree. That's fine. But some of it, for lack of a better phrase, is subjectively, objectively better. What I mean is that while some of these things I am bringing up would likely be considered criteria that people would use to say a game is objectively better, I will concede that any critique of art is inherently subjective. Like, sure, we can say that the perspective of this drawing sucks, fuck you, I made this in 2 minutes, but really one could easily argue that the wacky perspective of it is the entire point of this drawing. Take, for example, this famous piece by MC Escher. The entire point of this is to confuse the mind. In this sense, any art can be critiqued in any way, and any critique of an art piece is equally valid as it is invalid. I'm sure some freshman philosophy student could tell you the word for this and what I'm thinking of, but I'm not going to pretend like I know what any of that shit means, so I'm just telling you how I critique art. When it comes to video games, a good way to critique them is to discuss whether or not it accomplishes the things that the artist intended for it to accomplish. For example, if I make a game about running and jumping, but the run button doesn't work and jumping crashes the game, it's safe to assume that the game has failed to accomplish the goal that I had set out for it and could be critiqued on that basis. If I were to judge the art style of that same game, I could argue that it looks bad or unappealing, but that very well may be the artist's original goal with the art style. Maybe it's supposed to look unappealing or bad. To apply this to Minecraft and Vintage Story, we need to break down what each game is trying to accomplish. While there is some overlap here, I'm not going to claim that they are trying to accomplish the exact same thing. There is some differences. However, we can compare and contrast those criteria that do overlap, and that's the entire point of this video. Part 1. What is the point of Minecraft and Vintage Story? I think the goal of Minecraft is quite simple: to be a platform from which you can create your own experiences. But if you're the uncreative type, there are built-in features to keep you extrinsically motivated. What this boils down to is that Minecraft is essentially a more gamified version of Roblox. Roblox is not a game, it's a game engine. Minecraft is very much so going down that path, especially in their recent updates. Mojang is doing a ton of work on the back end to Minecraft to make it easier than ever to create your own content for the game, at least on Java. Bedrock modding is more or less dead, right? I don't keep up with it. Someone can update me in the comments. Speaking from my own experience, moving from version 1.20.4 to 1.20.5 was a huge game changer in how I developed my little server. Mojang overhauled their entire old MBT system into a new component system, one that is far more user-friendly and developer-friendly. This system more or less is what allows creators to customize items, mobs, loot tables, and so much more. Moving into 1.21, this system got even more expansive. If you want to see what I mean, check out the website MC Stacker. Make a /give command for a piece of armor on both versions 1.21 and 1.20.4, and just see how different the customization is. Alongside this, adding your own textures, paintings, music, enchantments, and so much more to the game has never been easier. Granted, it's still not in an ideal state, and I don't know if it ever will be, but it seems to be clear that Mojang is moving down this path. At its core, Minecraft is a game about creating your own experiences. Vintage Story is the same thing, but done better. Before we talk about how Vintage Story is better though, I do want to go over the entirely subjective things, not the subjectively objective things that I mentioned earlier. These are the things that I personally think Vintage Story is better than Minecraft. Again, it's all subjective. This is not my main argument, but is one that I feel goes a long way and sets up my second argument, which is far more fundamental. Part 2. Vintage Story is just a better survival experience. Since the inception of Minecraft, Notch planned for a survival mode. You can see this in the versions before Classic mode, 0.30. You know, the version that used to be up for free on the old Minecraft.net? That one, I used to play that shit all the time. It was so much fun. These survival tests were extremely bare bones and were clearly the foundation for what could have been a really deep and interesting survival mode. Survival mode in Minecraft is more or less creative mode with extra steps, and that is not objectively bad. I understand that Minecraft is about the creative side of things and not really the survival elements, but I fail to see why survival mode exists in Minecraft as it is. Again, this is all my opinion, so do not write a novella telling me why survival mode in Minecraft is actually the best thing since my parents' divorce. Trust me, I don't care. I know. There are some elements of survival mode that gesture at surviving in a sandbox. However, I think most mechanics function to more or less allow you to thrive rather than survive. There's a distinction there that I think you can all understand. Take, for example, the hunger bar. This thing has been pretty controversial since its inception. Granted, most people who are around for its introduction probably don't play the game anymore, or they don't really give a shit because it's been in the game for so long. But at its initial release in beta 1.8, people really did not like this thing. Like, yep, sprinting is really cool, but the constant eating was seen as really annoying, and yeah, you know what? I think it is annoying. It's a fucking chore to eat food. Not eating in Minecraft has 2 or 3 downsides depending on your difficulty. One is that you cannot sprint when the bar is emptied down to 30% or lower. This punishes you because you obviously can't run away from enemies. Having more than 10% of your hunger bar drained causes you to lose the ability to regenerate your health. In peaceful mode, empty your hunger bar entirely. It does nothing to you. You're fine. In easy mode, starving will cost you 5 hearts. In normal mode, you'll be left with half a heart. And finally, in hard and hardcore, you will be left with nothing. You will die. This is fine, and honestly isn't really where my issue with hunger is. My issue with hunger is that it is almost entirely unnecessary. I get that it's like one of those key features of survival mode, but the survival aspect of it is almost immediately negated from the time you start your world. What do I mean by that? Well, wild animals, bar a few exceptions, pose zero threat to the player. Getting your hands on wheat is as simple as breaking some grass, and getting the other crops isn't really that hard either, especially when villages are so common. Potatoes are a particularly good early game food source. You find a village, take some potatoes, and boom, you've got a fuck ton of free food. Farming is also really simple. You just plant the crop near water, provided it has enough light, it will grow. Granted, you can kind of make farming better if you plant different crops alongside each other or if you get some bees, but none of this is necessary to having food. By this point, you've already got an infinite food source. It's not hard. From there, you can find some cows or pigs or maybe even sheep and use that as a far better food source and just keep the wheat to keep breeding them. Breeding animals is as simple as right-clicking them with a crop. You don't have to keep track of which ones are male and female or how well fed the animal is. Hell, you only need to feed animals to initiate breeding. Most foods are as simple as throwing any raw meat into a furnace and getting the cooked variant once it's done. There are some really cool meals like rabbit stew or cake, but both of those are objectively outclassed by like pork chops and golden carrots. There is no reason to make any other food than the best ones other than the fact that you may not have access to them yet. No reason to experiment or to try something new outside of making a cake for your pal's birthday, which is admittedly pretty cool. I understand that this system is supposed to be simple, but this leans into the aspect of thriving, not surviving. Food doesn't spoil, so you can keep your food for as long as you'd like. You'd likely end up with a rather sizable stockpile of extra foods, just in case. Some of you might enjoy this. The ease of getting food and the ease of regenerating health might be the thing that helps you build and create things more easily in Minecraft, and I get that. From the perspective of allowing players to thrive and create easily, I can see the value in this system, but from the perspective of it being a survival mode, I think it falls flat in its face. In every server project I've ever done, natural regeneration is like the first thing to go. This is the game rule that determines whether or not eating food heals you. And this actually does one of two things. One, obviously, eating food no longer heals the player. And two, shit is just way harder because of that. Again, this is purely subjective, and I understand why so many people enjoy it. However, it's just not what I want out of a real survival experience. That may be what causes me to get so bored in a single player survival world. A lot of these survival mechanics feel shallow. At least in multiplayer, you have your friends that can spice up the world and make things interesting. This is where I feel Vintage Story shines. I've talked at length about its survival system in my original review, so if you want a more in-depth look at almost all of the mechanics, you can check out that video, especially for early game. For now though, I want to compare the hunger systems between these two games. As I do this, I want you to imagine that every other mechanic in Vintage Story has a similar level of depth to it to the hunger system. Listening to me with that in mind will help you figure out a lot of what the game has to offer, or just, you can watch my other video on it, but whatever. Food in Vintage Story is far more important. Getting your hands on food early game can be a pain in the ass. If you go into Vintage Story with the mindset that this is Minecraft, you'll be hit with a reality check the moment you try to attack any wildlife bigger than a rabbit. Foxes, goats, boars, wolves, and bears will all fight back. Moose, elk. Some deer might fight back too, but honestly, I've never killed one. They're so fucking cute. I don't want to be the hunter from Bambi. Before you ever get to fighting wildlife though, we should talk about all of this. Much like in real life, having a balanced diet in Vintage Story is super important. Eating a variety of foods will grant you extra health points, and trust me, you want those. Having all 5 of these in mind offers the player a reason to be curious, and more importantly, it stops players from eating the same 2 fucking foods over and over and over again. Instead of eating pork chops and golden carrots, I'm eating berries, soups, stews, making porridge, or various types of bread. Vintage Story lets you create over 350,000 different meals. Granted, I'm pretty sure some of them are like onion and turnip stew versus turnip and onion stew, so that number might be greatly inflated, I'm not sure. Regardless, there is a real art to cooking in this game compared to Minecraft. You can make a bucket, get some water, throw in some meat and veggies, and make quite the hearty stew. Or perhaps you like scrambled eggs with cheese. Honestly, I think making scrambled eggs with cheese should be a speedrunning category for Vintage Story. That would be insanely funny to have up. Not only is cooking far more deep in Vintage Story, but it has more purpose. You're not just eating shit so you don't starve, though that is very important. You're eating to maximize your strength. Beyond this, Vintage Story offers a deep farming mechanic and seasons. Winter is coming, for example, and you'll want a lot of crops before that happens. You'll have to rotate your crops to ensure that the nutrients in the soil are not depleted, causing your crops to yield less and grow at a slower rate. Hell, you can even make a greenhouse to ensure that the crops can grow a little bit longer in the winter. That's pretty insane, and Minecraft has nothing close to this. Granted, my greenhouse here looks like complete shit, but I promise we're moving soon and this is all temporary. And amending your soil to get the nutrients back isn't really that hard either. You can just get saltpeter from caves or grinding bone meal from the animals you've killed. Hell, even the soil you use matters. Some soils are far more nutrient rich than others, and you'll have to keep track of that. Growing crops also allows you to raise livestock. Getting livestock involves trapping animals and bringing them home and breeding them. I currently only have chickens, so I cannot speak to raising larger animals, but even raising chickens has been really interesting. Wild animals will always fear the player unless it's like a hostile animal like a bear or a wolf or a fucking moose. But as you breed them, around the 4th generation, the animals will stop running away and you can kill them with ease. You have to keep the chickens well fed in order for them to lay eggs, and you always want one rooster, as having more than one will risk cockfights that leave one or both of your roosters dead, and that's no good. Do you see now why I think this outshines Minecraft as a survival experience? This kind of logic and realism spreads across the game's various mechanics. Want to make bowls or cooking pots? You have to literally shape the pottery with clay and then burn it so it hardens. Want to make tools? You gotta knap flint and rocks, attach them to sticks. You want metal tools? Well, now you're asking for a lot of trouble, and you should probably watch my other video if you want to know more about that. Even beyond this, Vintage Story begs the player to interact with its world in a really organic way. I won't touch on it a lot, but my last video about how Vintage Story taught me a little bit of philosophy, I went deep into how the game organically ramps up the difficulty, and it forces you to ask questions about the world you're in. Why are there so many ruins? Who am I? What happened to civilization? What are drifters? Yada yada yada. It's all just really well done. And I know that a lot of this can sound really daunting, but I promise you in-game it's very slow and methodical. Saving up food for the winter sounds like a pain in the ass, but honestly, the in-game tutorials do a great job of teaching you how to survive. But let's say this ultra-hardcore survival experience just isn't what you like about voxel sandbox games. Let's say you prefer Minecraft's easygoing experience. What if I told you that Vintage Story gives you a multitude of ways to customize your experience to make sure that you play the game the way you want to play it? Part 3. Customization and approachability. I am still of the belief that everyone who buys this game should jump into the standard survival experience as the devs intended. It is brutally hard, and it is a kick in the ass that you'll need to understand your place in the world. But I wouldn't judge you for slightly lowering the hunger rate a little bit. I get it. I do it, honestly. If you find that the shit is way too hard, the game has some preset world generation options that make the experience easier, or harder if you're a masochist. Essentially, think of the standard survival experience as the normal mode of the game, and you can think of exploration as the easy mode and wilderness survival as the hard mode. Homo sapien is the preset that feels a lot like beta versions of Minecraft, with you being the first person in the world. No traders, no temporal stability, no drifters, no ruins, just you and the goals that you set for yourself. That's really cool. But if you go down to the bottom here and hit customize, it's like you've hacked your way into the fucking Matrix. Minecraft these days has very little in the way of customizing a new world and your experience within it. Usually just having a single biome, maybe a super flat and a couple other neat features like amplified worlds, but Vintage Story lets you toggle so much more than the world itself. You can toggle everything from how quickly your tools break to the fucking humidity level of the world. It's a pretty expansive system. Finding it difficult to get ores other than copper? Make ore veins massive and make tin bits super common on the surface. That should allow you to quickly level up your tools. Want to have a bit more time in your world before the drifters start showing up? You can delay their spawn up to 10 days. Don't like temporal stability at all? Think it's a stupid dumb fuck system? Turn that shit off. There's a lot here. Say, for example, I want a world that is very hot, very humid, and is mostly water with lots of copper and tin around. I can do that. Want a world of mostly polar biomes? You can do that. Want a world that is not at all realistic and features scattered biomes similar to how you could find in Minecraft? Hell, you can make bears and wolves never hostile to you and just kill them with ease. There is so much to this system that I think we could be here for at least an hour going over its strengths compared to Minecraft's system. And the thing is, Minecraft used to have a more expansive world generation system that allowed you to change how wacky the terrain was, how much of each ore spawned, and so much more. Over the years, Mojang have taken away these features and reduced world creation to an almost extremely boring and basic shell of its former self. They've almost regressed in this regard, honestly. The freedom players once had has been stripped away for no good reason. Beyond the game itself though, the devs at Vintage Story have given their community many tools to create, and this is one of the biggest things I think Vintage Story has done to outshine Minecraft. Part 4. Vintage Story has a modding API. For a long time, Minecraft fans have been asking Mojang to create a modding API to allow fans to more easily create fan content. For a game that is all about creation and community, it is genuinely baffling that Mojang has not done this, though I think it may have something to do with the marketplace and Microsoft. Mojang promised long ago that they would release a modding API, an official one. They simply never did. Instead, this has been left up to the community to do it themselves. For a long time, Forge has been the king of this, but recently though, Fabric and Quilt have popped up as alternatives due to Forge's extremely slow load times and worse performance, let's be real. This is a common trend with Mojang. Why fix the game ourselves when we can have the community do it? Minecraft runs like shit. This is no doubt because it is built on a shitty engine coded in Java. It's no secret. It's almost impossible to play Java Edition on a mid to lower end PC without performance mods like Optifine or Sodium. Sure, Mojang has made updates to improve performance, but they haven't done anything that comes close to what Sodium and Optifine have been able to do for the community for years. I can remember my first time getting Optifine and watching my FPS literally double without changing any settings. I don't know a lot about coding, but there is seriously something fundamentally wrong with the way this game is built, and Mojang is just refusing to address it and leaving it to the modders. So the least Mojang could do is provide a modding API to make these mods easily accessible to the community, right? Wrong. Why would they ever make one of those when Forge and Fabric exist and have had that shit down for years? No point in doing so. They never will. This is by far my biggest complaint about Minecraft, and it's one of those subjectively objective points that I brought up at the beginning of this video. Performance. This is one of those things where I think I can say it objectively falls short. The game does not run well on Java, and the Bedrock edition is literally called Bugrock for the absurd amount of bugs it has. Mojang are a multi-billion-dollar company owned by a multi-trillion-dollar company. There's no reason they could simply not hire more people or get this issue fixed with their current dev team. I'm not blaming the devs. The developers are hard workers, and as fans, we should be on the same side as the devs. I will blame, though, the higher-ups at these companies for refusing to do what is objectively right by the people who keep their doors open. If I went to a grocery store and the food I kept buying from there had a 10% chance of being rotten by the time it got home, I'd stop going there. Doubly so if customers at that store were checking over people's food to make sure it wasn't rotten before I checked out. The grocery store should be the people checking that, not up to the customers. That's stupid. Instead, the grocery store just offers to host customer-made products and takes a 30% cut. That's an analogy to the marketplace, in case you didn't get it. Vintage Story does all of this, but the right way. There is an official modding API. There is even a section on their website where mods are featured. When joining a server with mods, the game automatically downloads these mods for you so you can play hassle-free. It's fucking insane. Making your own mods is great too. As long as you know how to code a little bit, you can make content for this game with far less effort than Minecraft. They even have their modeling and animation tools as open source so anyone can easily build off of it. This is it. This is what I mean when I say Vintage Story is a better game. Vintage Story does what Nintendo don't. I mean what Mojang won't. Is it too late for that joke? Am I 30 years too late? Any Gen X people in the audience who get that reference? Entering the Vintage Story Discord tells you all you need to know. Modders get their own damn role and their own channel, and you can get advice from fellow coders on how to create things if you're in a pickle. You can also just talk to other fans of the game and find servers to play on. All of this alone would be enough for me to say that the game is better than Minecraft, but Vintage Story takes it further. There is no marketplace. All of these mods are free. There is no DLC, no microtransactions in your face. It's just you, the community, and the art of it all. That's what Minecraft used to be. Art for art's sake. Before the corporate bureaucracy, before profit was put above everything else. The only thing that Onego Studios offers other than the game itself is the entirely optional supporter add-on, which gives you a fancy role in the Discord and a golden name in-game. It's a one-time purchase. They also offer serving hosting for €10 a month. That's it. If you want to support them, you buy the game, buy it for a friend, get the supporter add-on. They respect your wallet and they respect you as a person. The game's like $21. It's cheaper than Minecraft and they will never ask another penny out of you. That's what made Minecraft so special in the first place. The community created for creation's sake. Massive mods like the Aether were put out for fun, and they never asked a dime out of the people who enjoyed it. Sure, if you wanted to, they probably had like optional donations for early access, but all of this stuff was free for the sake of art. Now it's like every other fucking YouTuber makes a mod and puts it behind their Patreon for 15 fucking bucks a month. Jesus Christ. Even worse is that so many of these things are just ripped off in the Bedrock marketplace. Like the Aether mod literally has a ripoff in the marketplace, and that ripoff has a fucking sequel, and it's still there. It's insane. Don't get me wrong, Mojang does a lot right, and I'm not trying to hate on them or saying that you should hate on them. And I'm sure that all the people who work there are lovely people. I just get the sense that they're not allowed to run the game the way they want to. I get the sense that they are being held back by something. Obviously, I'm hinting at Microsoft. Part 5. Vintage Story's growing community. I think a lot of animosity has built up between Mojang and a lot of their fans over the years. A lot of fans will, wrongfully, mind you, say that Mojang is lazy and no good. It seems like there are entire YouTube channels who have propped up to just shit on whatever Minecraft is doing and claiming that the game is moving in the wrong direction. I think that's stupid, and it's one thing to critique the game, it's another thing to just repeatedly trash it for views and money. It gets old. A community built on toxicity will turn on you the moment you do something that they don't agree with. If you shit, you'll attract flies. The Minecraft community has been in need of an attitude adjustment. I think 1.21 has done a lot to fix this, but the winter drop they're currently working on has brought back a lot of these haters, and it just gets fucking old after a while. Vintage Story has none of this. The community is almost entirely filled with people who have a genuine love for the game. Sure, there might be some critics out there, but any criticism that I've seen from the game comes from a place of love and genuine passion. Other criticism usually comes from people who comment on my videos and have never played the game and say they will never play it because it looks like a Minecraft clone. And God, I envy being that shallow. I wish I could be that shallow. Jesus. I mentioned the Discord a moment ago, but it really is a great place to hang out and meet people. Stuck trying to make charcoal because the handbook could really fucking use some JPEGs? Me too. I struggle with that a lot. Jump in the Discord and ask away. There's an entire channel dedicated to having members of the community answer questions for new players. It's great stuff. Find a new lore secret and want to discuss your discovery with fellow lore lovers? You can do that too. Want to see cool videos made by the community? Check out the videos and stream channel. There's a ton here and there's no reason to not join it. Overall, the community feels very positive, and I think this can be mostly attributed to the fact that Inigo Studios isn't doing shit they know will piss off their fans, like chat reporting or account migrations. Now, the severity of these two things can be debated, but there is no doubt about how these two issues alone cause massive uproar in the Minecraft community. And you'll notice that Mojang has done nothing to remedy that. Except for the mob vote. They did get that one fixed. Good job, team. Vintage Story feels like it's on the right path. With update 1.20 right around the corner, I'm very excited to see where the game goes. As always though, there's a link in the description to the game's website where you can buy the game. If you buy the game, maybe join the Discord and maybe you'll see me around there every once in a while. For now, consider becoming a member for $3 a month. It helps me a ton. Bye bye!